Welcome, friends. Today we're a little later than usual. However, I do want to do a broadcast. It's a special day. Today is the 20th of the month of Av. 20th day of Av, Chaf Menachem Av, is the yahrzeit, the day of passing of the father of the Rebbe, Rebbe Leivik. Now, what's extra special and really auspicious this year is that it's the 75th yahrzeit of the Rebbe's father, and therefore recognized and commemorated and really prepared for and spoken about, perhaps much more than any other year. Who was Rebbe Leivik? And today I want to share a little bit about who he was, some of his teachings, and some stories about him. Rebbe Leivik, his full name is Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, the father of the Rebbe, lived in, and actually was the chief rabbi of the city of Yekaterinoslav. Today it's Dnepropetrovsk, which is a story in itself. When he initially was looking to become a rabbi, he was actually 31 at the time, considered to be very young for a rabbi of a city. And up until that point, he was living under the care or support of his father-in-law, the Rebbe's grandfather, who was a great tzaddik himself, the Meir Shlomo Yanovsky, and he supported him while he studied Torah. But at the age of 31, he went to go and become a rabbi of a city. And after deciding between various different cities, he went for Dnepropetrovsk. When he came to the city, then it was called Yekaterinoslav, as mentioned, there was fierce opposition. There were actually two groups. There were the influential people. Many of those belonged to the Enlightenment movement, and they weren't really so interested in having a Hasidic rabbi altogether. Many people were Jewish, but left the way of Jewish practice, and were looking for someone that's going to be Jewish in culture, but not Jewish in practice. And the only ones, really, the other group that was with the Rebbe's father, with Rebbe Leivik, and encouraged him and wanted and hoped that he would indeed become the chief rabbi of their city, was a group of Hasidic Jews, a group of shul goers, and they didn't have anywhere near the type of influence and connections that the others in the city that were opposing him had. Now, there was some sort of elections that would have to take place, and this required a lot of maneuvering, working with politicians, dealing with local government officials, persuading the people of the town, of the city, to vote for him. It wasn't an easy task. The main person who probably could do the most here was a Jew by the name of Shmerel Feivel. Now this Shmerel Feivel was originally very religious. He grew up in a Hasidic home, but as he got older and in his teenage years, he dropped all associations with Jewish life and with Jewish practice. And as he was doing this, people came over to him and they said, you have connections. He was in charge of his own organization, and they told him, why don't you come and help us with the opposition to make sure that Rebbe Leivik does not become chief rabbi of the city. And he said, okay, but I do first want to meet this fellow. I want to, as they say, meet the enemy before I take him down. So he asked for a private meeting with Rebbe Leivik. He gets a private meeting, which ended up lasting for 6 hours. And during the 6 hours, he was tremendously impressed by the Rebbe's father's knowledge in all areas of Jewish law, in all areas of Jewish thought. We're talking the written Torah, the oral Torah, halacha, which is Jewish law, Kabbalah, Chassidus, really a broad spectrum, on his worldview, on his personality. And he really was taken by it. And when he walked out of that meeting, he said, I'm not opposing this guy. Not only am I not opposing him, but I am going to help him. And he sat down with the people that were on the team, on the camp, on the group that wanted to help the Rebbe's father to become the chief rabbi, and he started giving them tips. And you imagine a person who was, we'll just call it anti-religious, is now sitting next to Hasidic Jews with beards and payas, and they're here to convince or to help, to show them what are the steps necessary and how will we go about making this rabbi, making this person win the election and help him become the chief rabbi. And ultimately was successful, and he became the rabbi, and he was the rabbi of Dnepropetrovsk, Yekaterinoslav, for many years. Now, this fellow was this rabbi was rabbi for many years and really led the city with tremendous strength. It wasn't easy. Went through the revolution, and then you have the Bolsheviks, then you have the communists who were really, really strong, and their main effort and goal was wiping out religious life. And here you have a rabbi of a city who is strong. His goal is to strengthen Jewish life. His goal is to educate, to teach, to help. And they want to take him down. And many, many times, both on the large scale government-wise and on the more micro, if you will, scale, where you have people sitting in his own city who want to change stuff. I'll give you just a brief example. Right when he started, there's a fascinating story about a fellow about a situation where the mikvah, the ritual bath, was falling apart, and it really had to be rebuilt. It was a matter of time before it would be unfit for use, and it was one of those things where it's important, it has to be changed. By the way, a mikvah is one of the fundamental aspects of community life. And talking about the woman's mikvah and so on, it's something which is extremely important, and every community needs one. In his situation, in Dnepropetrovsk, the mikvah, was falling apart. And he called together a meeting with the people, the leaders of the community, who were in charge of community projects, community funding. And they said, guys, we have to make a mikvah. We got to fix the mikvah, make it fit for use. And they looked at him and they said, Rabbi, with all due respect, you're new here, you're young. We have other priorities for Jewish life in the city. We do hope to get to a mikvah. We'd like to, but it's not step number one. It's not the top of the list. We simply can't afford to do everything. And if everything has the same priority, nothing has a priority, and we can't do it. Reb Leivik looked at them. He stood up and he took off his coat. Now, this was a very special coat. It was expensive and it was very sentimental. It was given to him just before the inauguration of his becoming rabbi of the city. They give him this. He takes off this coat that they gifted him, and he said, if money's the problem, take this coat. This will be the first payment towards our project of building the mikveh. And he dropped it on the table. And when the group sitting on the table noticed how strong he felt, how determined he was, how crucial it is for him that the mikveh be built, they did it, and they went ahead and built it. And there are many other stories like this, where the Rebbe's father, Reb Leivik, showed them that he means business, and that we're taking Jewish life seriously, and the well-being of the community seriously, and working towards it. And he led very, very strongly. And finally, the authorities caught up with him, and they decided they wanted to arrest him. They tried to frame him all different ways. It didn't work. And in the end, the best they could come up with was to say that he's a threat to community. And therefore, they have to exile him. And without any type of court case, as was common in those days, they sent him away to far off Kazakhstan, where there he lived in Chile, small city there, a town, very, very hot, very difficult. He became very ill, and ultimately passed away there, and is buried in Alma-Ata, which the Rebbe speaks about the dedication that his father had, the Mesiras Nefesh that his father had, the sense of selflessness for a cause, not just to suffer from it, but as a result, he passed away early. He took ill, he didn't have the proper doctor's medication and care that was there, and he passed away early as a result of his efforts for taking care of the community. strengthening Judaism. And years later, there are results of that. Of course, the Rebbe did so much in this, and we're tremendously grateful to Rebbe Leivik and to Rebbe Tzimchana for the Rebbe, who changed the course of Jewry, really, for our generation and beyond. I want to share a thought, a teaching, an explanation from the Rebbe's father. And this explanation is in a topic that we don't usually talk about. It's a topic about hell and punishment. Now, we don't usually focus on hell and afterlife punishments per se, because we don't do mitzvahs. We don't do the right thing because we want reward. We don't refrain from doing something wrong because we're scared of some type of punishment or consequence. Rather, our relationship with Torah and with mitzvahs is one of, if this is correct, if this is appropriate, if this is what God wants me to do, I'll do it. Whether you're rewarding me or you're not rewarding me, it's not really about the reward per se. And sometimes when we talk about the consequences and what hell looks like, and so on and so forth, we could lose focus. And then Torah and mitzvahs become a burden. I do it because I don't want to be punished. I don't want to get hurt. I'd rather not do it, but I have no choice. There's a story about a great rabbi who met someone, and he asked him, he said, why don't I see you in the synagogue? So he said, because I don't believe in God. He said, oh, that God? I don't believe in that God either. He looks at the rabbi and says, what do you mean you don't believe in God? He says, that God that you believe in, he's this mighty, strong guy holding a whip, and every time you do something wrong, he gives you a whack. I don't believe in that God. I believe in a kind, merciful, giving, caring, loving God. Point is, we do mitzvahs because it's the right thing to do. And we don't do the wrong thing because God doesn't want us to do it. And we don't think about punishment and reward. However, we know that there is reward, and there is punishment. When you do the right thing, you get rewarded. You do the wrong thing, you get punished. And the Zohar, the main book of Kabbalah, discusses this and says the following, that there are two types of hell. There is, and usually we talk about a hot hell. People talk about how burning it is, how fiery it is, and that's the punishment for the soul. But there is one hell, which is the hot hell, and then there is another hell, which is the cold hell. It's called the Gehenim Shel Sheleg, the hell, the purgatory of snow. What's the difference between these two? It's different types of punishments, different degrees of pain, and so on. But Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon says, and we recite this in the Eshes Chayil, the woman of valor, that we say every Friday night before Kiddush. He says, not afraid in her house of shaleg, we'll call it snow, because her house, her household, her family, they're wearing red. Now, the Zohar tells us, don't read this verse as wearing red, but the word in Hebrew for shanim, which means red wool, could be also read in the same way as shnayim, which means two. So we're not afraid because we're wearing two. What are these two? And the two are two categories of mitzvahs, or pairs of mitzvahs, which protect us that we shouldn't be afraid of this type of hell. Whether it's the Gehenim of fire, and in this verse, it's the hell of ice, of snow, we're not afraid of it. What are the two things? So the two things are, we have Mila and Priya, which are the two steps involved in a bris. There's a circumcision, we're getting rid of a certain part which shouldn't be there, and we have Priya, which means folding it back or pulling it back. That's two items that we have which protects us, which makes us not to be afraid of any type of this hell of snow. We have another double that we wear. What's the double that we wear? We have tzitzis and we wear tefillin. And these two mitzvahs protect us says the Zohar, from the hell of snow. And then there is a third one. And the third category, if you will, the third pair that protects us is Hanukkah, the menorah, the candles that we light in our house, and mezuzah. So the Levi Yitzchak, the Rebbe's father, explains this, and he says as follows. You have three categories in life. You have you have your food, your nourishment, and you have you have your clothing, and you have your house. Three stages. The person himself, his garment, and his house. The category of you really is your food. It's what you take in to live. Clothes is a little bit more distant. You don't take it inside, but you put it on. It's part of it. It's surrounding you. And even more distant than that is your house. It's what's around you, what's your shelter, and what protects you, if you will. Okay. Now, every one of these things the Zohar talks about go into one of these categories. Okay? Number one is the idea of the bris, milah, and priya. These two steps in the bris are done to the person's body. That's ourselves. Then you have a second category, which is tzitzis and tefillin. These are garments. We wear these things. And thirdly is the house. That is mezuzah. And ner Chanukah, the candles of Chanukah. Now, each one of these pairs have a positive and a negative thing. We're doing something in the giving, kind, caring way, positivity, and then there is a negative thing. We're refraining or getting rid of, chasing away something bad. Let's take bris, for example. Step number one is getting rid of the part that's not supposed to be there. That's removal. Priya, which is pulling back or folding over, is a level of adding something. It's not just getting rid of negative things, but it's to bring positive things into it. Tzitzis and tefillin. The main idea of tzitzis is the blue string, which today we don't have it because we don't have access to this tchelas, which gave us this blue. There are people which do the blue. It's not the Hasidic custom, but there are people which do blue, although we don't have the original, the real blue. But the idea of blue in Yiddishkeit, especially in Kabbalah, blue is kindness. And the idea of tzitzis, represented by the tchelas, is that it brings kindness into the world. It's a positive thing. Tefillin is the element that when tefillin are worn, the Torah says the tefillin of the head bring a fear. It's a certain scare. The nations of the world, the idolaters, recognize, hey, you can't stand up with these people. So again, you have the tefillin, the tzitzis, which does positive, brings kindness and goodness to the world. And then you have the tefillin, which chases away the negative and gets rid of these things. Hanukkah. The idea of Hanukkah is the oil, lighting of the candles, which the oil is a term that's used in connection with the Kohen Gadol, who is kindness. When you light a menorah, you bring light into the world. You bring kindness into the world. So we're doing something which is giving. Mezuzah is a protector. It chases away. It makes sure that the negativity doesn't come in. Okay, whether it's demons or other forces of negativity, this makes sure that they don't come into the house. So you have three pairs. Milah and Priya, the two parts of bris. Then you have tzitzis and tefillin, two garments. Then you have, in the home, Hanukkah and mezuzah. Each one of these pairs, one is bringing goodness and good energy and kindness into the world, and one is taking away, it is pulling back or protecting from negativity. Now, in hell, there's the Gehenna of Eish and the Gehenna of snow. The Gehenna of Eish, the fiery hell, is here to correct things that were done in the negative sense, things that were done with fire to damage, to ruin, and so on. And certain mitzvahs that we do protect us from the fire of hell. But then you have the positive side. And those are the mitzvahs and the elements of these mitzvahs that we just mentioned, which bring goodness into the world. And the Zohar is saying, as explained by the Rebbe's father, is that these two protectors is what we have. We're protected by the goodness from this things, and that's why we have nothing to worry about for the hell of snow, and for the we're protected from the hell of fire. And I just want to stress again that when we do mitzvahs, we're not doing mitzvahs because we're afraid of punishment. We don't do mitzvahs because we want the reward. We do mitzvahs because that's what Hashem wants us to do. But it's fascinating to see how things that we do in life and the mitzvahs that we accomplish, they have tremendous impact on bringing positivity or protecting us from negativity in life, and even in how it comes in relationship with Hashem to us. Thanks all for watching. This is dedicated to the Rebbe's father's 75th yahrzeit, Rebbe Levi Yitzchak, who I'm named after. A very special man, as mentioned in the beginning of the class, whose dedication and really perseverance against all types of challenges still continues till today. The work and the fruits of his labor is something which the generations and expansion of Jewish life, and of course, the Rebbe and everything that the Rebbe brings to the world is continuation and extension of the Rebbe's father. Thank you for joining, and please, if you have any questions, comments, we'll be happy to answer them. If you don't want to comment publicly, you're welcome to message me privately. Let's learn and let's help others learn. Thank you for joining. Subscribe and share today.